How's the new Airbnb, Mike?
Oh, it's a shithole. I should have checked it out in person before booking it. But whatever.
Man. That woman,
you could hear literally everything.
Ruined her stove. She's asking me for money. It's ridiculous. Left me a nasty review on Airbnb. I have no idea. I didn't even respond to it yet.
Which woman?
The one from the place you were at when I was in Denver.
Oh, the one that had no internet and a leak in her floor when we got there that never responded to anything? Screw it. Whatever. I didn't ruin any stove. I didn't even cook.
So, wait, really? You didn't cook at all? You didn't use the stove?
I just baked mom's stuff. I was barely even breathing that week.
Yeah, I feel you. All right, well, let's dive into it here. Another morning show. We do this every morning at 8:30 Eastern time. It's October 9th, Morning Market Mashup. Go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, Rolland Market Mashup. And the futures, once again, are pointing to a higher open. This is the week of headlines, even though they don't seem to matter much. And once again, we have a bunch of upgrades, not really many downgrades. And Dad, we didn't have you yesterday. We're happy to have you back. Curious to hear your thoughts on the action this week. Let's just throw it to you right now. What are your thoughts on what you're seeing with this rally?
Yeah, I'm basically pretty surprised. I think the rally stems mainly from the drugs that Trump was given and people realizing that they definitely have a bridge to this virus. And Scott Gottlieb was on today, and he talked about how this combination of drugs is definitely something that works, and most of it is available right now to people. They'll be able to go, if they have a problem and they're in the hospital, they will be able to get most of what Trump got. The antibody part of it will take longer, but the other two drugs are available. And there's plenty of supply, apparently. So that's a really good news, and I think it's helped the market.
Yeah, and yesterday, I know we didn't get a chance to talk about it on the morning show because it happened midday, but one of the biggest movers of the day was GameStop. Mike, you've brought them up a few times. They announced a partnership with Microsoft where it sort of sounds like they're going to be turning the GameStop facilities into experience centers and kind of enhancing on the in-person gaming activities that GameStop was already starting to do before the pandemic. So their stock exploded on that news. It was up over 40% yesterday. I'm sure it was a combination of people jumping on the news, and then also, once again, you probably had a massive short squeeze once that stock jumps 25% midday. But yeah, that was one of the big movers yesterday, and good job.
Yeah, you gotta love this stock long term. You know, you gotta like this now with that partnership. I think this thing has legs. I'm gonna look for another entry point to get back in it.
Yeah, and Mike, that was a good call. You also, thanks for bringing that to my attention yesterday when it originally had that surge, because I was able to play the day trade on the breakout. That thing, so Mike hit me up. He was like, check out GameStop right now. And it had just surged like 30% in 2 seconds, jumped from like $9.50 to $11.50. Then it retraced back to, I think, $11, and then ultimately took off to like 13.
It's frustrating because I just missed my limit order by like 8 cents, and I would have made a fortune if it had hit that.
Well, I played it on the breakout. I told you what I was doing, where I had a buy order triggered at 11.91 because it first hit 11.90, and then it came back down to 11. So then when it went to 11.91 again, it triggered my order, and then it just busted all the way through 12. And I mean, it was actually insane watching the price action in that stock in the afternoon. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. And I would not have even known about it if it wasn't for you, Mike. So appreciate that text. And hopefully we can get more of those rocking.
And that's what I'm all about, figuring out how to get paid.
And then the other thing that we brought up yesterday, and in the morning there was nothing happening, but also volume spiked. So in the vice presidential debate, they made it very clear that they're decriminalizing marijuana. And we talked about possibly giving another look to the weed stocks, Canopy, Aurora. And we should have, when we were talking about it on this show, make some buy orders, because mid-morning there must have been people meeting, having the same type of conversations, because you saw big volume spikes in Canopy, big volume spikes in Aurora. I think people are starting to see the writing on the wall with that. So those are probably going to continue to be trades heading into the election as people wrap their minds around the idea of the Democrats winning and what that would look like for some of these weed companies.
I think the psychedelic stocks are more of the grand slam when you really look at where that's heading, and the CNPS that Dad brought up and the MMEDF that, Dan, I've brought up daily to you. That's just seems like it's on a rocket ship lately. Those are
CMPS got hit hard yesterday.
Well, yeah, great buying opportunity.
And Mike, I kind of I'm not gonna say I called what would happen with MMEDF, but it is kind of interesting, like seeing what happens when it approaches that dollar level. Clearly, it's like a big psychological level for people with the penny stock, where I don't know if it's gonna bust through it this time.
Well, it was, if you looked at the RSI, it kind of hit that to that point. It was getting heavily weighted. So I think it just needs to cool off a little, but I don't think there's a psychological hurdle of it going over $1 by any means. I think it was just, it's been going up like crazy.
Dad, is there something to be said for that with penny stocks when they reach that dollar limit, or not at all?
I don't think it's a major deal. I mean, you could kind of make a claim that it's similar to when a stock hits 100, that once it breaks through $1, it has a little power of its own for, maybe a few percent. But it's just a psychological number. It means nothing else.
I think that thing has so much more room to run. Like, not saying tomorrow or next week, but I'm just holding it.
So I scooped up a little Domino's yesterday on the debt. They had their quarter yesterday, and I thought it was a good quarter. They beat revenue expectations. Same-store sales increased by over 18%. The street wanted 12. They missed profits a little. They were obviously running a lot of promotions, running deals with the pandemic. I think Domino's benefits from all kinds of things. A lot of mom and pop places just aren't necessarily surviving. We're heading into the winter months, not to mention like the whole theme of people moving out of cities and moving into like more suburb places. They have less options. To me, that is kind of a good thing for Domino's. I also saw they got some upgrades this morning, a bunch of upgrades actually. So we'll see what happens with that. Yesterday, it got all the way down into like the 395 range, but that was just for like a minute. It was mainly hovering around 400 all day. But that was a move I made yesterday, probably for a swing trade. I don't necessarily want to like hold Domino's for years, but it's such a good long-term chart that this was such a great dip buying opportunity.
What was the last time you ate Domino's, Dan?
I was going to say I'm not a fan. That's why I'm looking at it as a swing trade. But I will say that like Rory McIlroy in his golf match against Justin Thomas brought up Domino's just out of nowhere. He was like, man, you know what I've been really loving lately? He was like, Domino's. He's like, they're so consistent. They eat pizza. And at the end of the day, like I just said, like they had a great quarter. And it seems like they always sell off after a good quarter, and then it shakes out the weak hands, and then the buyers step in, and that stock climbs back. So we'll see. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if you see that thing get down to like 380, but I'm in it. So we'll see what happens there. And then also I read this morning, I know we had talked about how DraftKings did the offering at 52 a share. I read this morning that they're going to do another offering possibly as soon as October 22nd. And that they did, and that was something that was released in the first offering notes, but they didn't say what the price would be for the second offering. But definitely something to keep an eye on. Also, this morning there's more COVID cases popping up in the NFL. I'm starting to think though that they're not going to cancel the NFL. Yesterday there was a moment where Penn and DraftKings were flushing out, and I thought there was about to be like a headline come out that the NFL was canceled. That never happened, but that's
maybe people are gambling more when they worry about the NFL closing, so they're betting more per game to get all their betting in.
Yeah.
I would still look out for that, though. That whole NFL thing seems to be a shit show. I would not, if I was a player right now, I'd be thinking about just axing this. the whole switching around games. It's like they look at these players as pawns that they don't care about. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but it's true. They do look at it that way.
The whole like, oh, let's switch this to Tuesday from Sunday. It's like, no, we're ready to play today. We're not switching this. Let's cancel this season. Like when I keep seeing this, that's not good for the players, the way that's set up at all.
It's not, but I almost feel like they're just going to deal with it because
they'll deal with it unless this gets to another level. I would be careful with those stocks off that alone, because if it does cancel, that's going to make those go in a nosedive.
Yeah, and Ford, I'm finally in the green on.
All right, about time.
I know. It's the stock is definitely, I think, getting to a crucial level here. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at 750, because every time it pops up to these levels, it gets beaten back down. But this time feels different. I don't know.
Ford, Steel, GE, they're all in the same kind of
GE.
Both stocks move together in some strange way, even though they're much different companies. But,
well, Goldman Sachs actually gave GE a buy rating this morning with $10 per share for a 12-month price target.
I'm not jumping on that.
See what they're doing.
I don't see myself ever owning GE again.
The percentage moves you get in the GE, Fords, and Steels, because they're cheap stocks, are pretty dramatic for old, staid companies, right?
I mean, I think you could say that in GE and Steel. I haven't seen those moves in Ford yet. The most I've seen this stock up is 2% so far since I've owned it, but I feel like it could happen. Let me ask you, Dad, what is it with, like, when you look at Ford chart, obviously Ford is not a day trading stock at all, but there's a ton of volume in it. Like, what's going on there that just makes it where you don't get that same back and forth in the price? Is it just because there's so many big shareholders?
I think, there's just so many. First of all, there's a lot of shares outstanding, which is one thing. And I think there's so many cross currents on people thinking this company has a chance to do really well, and others who think it's a piece of shit. So it's just a tug of war. That's why you see so much volume at the same prices over and over again.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much it trades.
It is, to the point where the chart doesn't even look like normal when you look at the wicks, because it's just it's a really difficult stock to day trade. Can't do it.
That is a great stock if it gets hit hard to pick up on a dip and then wait a few days. You almost have to wait for the sector to get a wave of buying in it and Ford gets swept into it. But I don't find it a good day trading stock. I think Steel is a better one.
Yeah, which I've neglected to even look at, even though every time I look at it, well, that doesn't make any sense. I just said I neglected to look at it, but every time I look at Steel, it seems like that stock is ticking higher. So that was a good call by you. You brought them up over $1 ago, which at these levels is, stocks up basically 30% in a couple of weeks from where you first started talking about it. So that's big time. Another thing, we talk about the semiconductor space a lot on here, mainly NVIDIA, but this morning, or I think it was yesterday, the reports of AMD and correct me if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but Xilinx? I've never heard of them. What is it, Dad?
Xilinx.
What's up with them? Because I saw that AMD looks like they're going to be buying them for like a $30 billion deal.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what they do, but AMD is killing it, so they must see an opportunity there. Look, even Intel is acting pretty well. It broke out through the, when it had its bad earnings, it was in a range, and it broke out of that range finally. It's a lot less of a mover than NVIDIA and AMD, but there's people that think going forward, you want Intel, not the others.
Yeah.
It's a tough call to make, though.
They're all a little down today on maybe that news, except obviously Xilinx, which is almost $18. So that'll be an interesting stock to look at today, even though that seems like it's already kind of a done deal. So another thing which kind of goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about might happen is I saw this morning that Disney announced that they're going to release their Pixar movies sold directly to Disney Plus without going through movie theaters, which was the original plan. That's coming out on Christmas Day. It was supposed to come out in theaters on November 20th. So
yeah, that doesn't bode well for the movie theater stocks, does it?
No, which have been on fire lately because they've been moving at rapid speeds to get their movie theaters open.
I don't get that.
I mean, AMC is not down on that news, but they've been.
They should be.
I don't know if they've been on fire, actually. Let's see. Their stock's trading at. Yeah, actually, it's been a complete disaster. What am I talking about? Stocks have. The movie theater stocks have not been on fire, at least AMC. I think there's another one that's been doing better that I'm blanking on the name. But AMC is a stock that to me is basically pricing in complete bankruptcy. So if you do believe in movie theaters sticking around, this could be an interesting look, even though I don't know if I believe in that story.
Yeah, I would not touch that. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I don't see how long-term movie theaters is a good way to go.
Not in the current model they're in.
I mean, the only case I could make for it going forward is that maybe they can get cheap real estate off of all these offices closing down. I don't know.
Well, they have to do other things with the space then,
Yeah.
and not just put on movies. That's really the problem with all these streaming services and why I'm a big Roku fan. And I have to figure out a way to get a Netflix. I've never owned it, but you know, going into the cold months, the last thing I'm thinking about is movie theaters.
Mike, did you end up buying Roku when you talked about them?
No,
they got another
I haven't bought it yet.
They had a great day yesterday. Yeah, the thing with the movie theaters is I don't think it would take much for them to make it where people are wanting to go to movie theaters. It's something to do. They could definitely.
I don't think people are patient enough in this era to go to a movie and sit for a couple hours. I just think we're heading so away from that. Like if someone wants to go somewhere for an experience, like when you look at even this lockdown, people are trying to socialize again, going out somewhere to then not socialize for a couple hours. I just don't see it. I think this whole thing has been a death sentence for them unless they completely change what they're doing, which I don't even know what that looks like. Maybe augmented reality tickets, kind of like the High Line in New York. They just out of nowhere started charging people to walk on it. So I think to myself, okay, so
is that true?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's part of why I left. But yeah, you know, it's something to think about with augmented reality. Maybe they could have experiences, turn it into a huge laser tag center. Like there's a lot you could do with that space that's not watching a movie.
Yeah. To switch it up, Zoom got an upgrade. Dad, I know you think they could be one of the shorts of the decade. They basically, I guess, have an analyst day coming up next week on October 14th. And I guess certain people are looking at that as a catalyst for the stock to move higher. We'll see.
But it still hasn't gotten back over to its old high, which was what, 529-ish, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's kind of hovering at the same levels as where it was since we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. So that'll be interesting to watch. But Microsoft is inching higher. They, obviously more Xbox news and then the GameStop news, but they keep going back and forth between this level and 205. I'm wondering if this time it's for real and they make that further breakout to maybe 220, maybe even 245. Yeah,
I mean, at some point, some of these stocks are just going to have to get hit off of the idea of this blue wave. I mean, this cannot be good, at least short term, for all the people who have capital gains. And
off of what, Dad?
The blue wave.
Biden winning.
Biden, Congress going one way.
Yeah, you're going to see some massive sell-offs before the election or before the end.
It may not even be before the election. Maybe it'll happen after.
Yeah, before the end of the year.
Though, like people are starting to look at those two as pretty Wall Street friendly, and I think they're being very careful during the debates to not say anything that suggests otherwise. And I think
about as Wall Street friendly as a slap in the face.
Are they though?
Yeah,
because
it is just not good for Wall Street when you think about more regulation and higher corporate taxes.
Yeah, I still don't think that these polls are completely out of whack. It's literally the same thing from 4 years ago. I don't think Biden's even winning. So
I'm starting to think Biden is winning, but more
that's what everyone's seeming to think, and that's why the world's usually way off. With
Not
everything.
Usually, Mike. Actually, over time, these polls, over decades, these
before
polls
social media existed, Dad, you're dead on. Since then, there's been, and that's something to think about. They're all wrong.
Don't you think that maybe part of the reason the market is starting to maybe not fear those two is you look at both the debates and they had an opportunity to attack Wall Street, to attack the big corporations that they wanted, which they know is a popular topic.
Well, of course they're not going to do that during a debate. They're trying to win.
Yeah, but that kind of caters to a lot of the people that support that party. That's what they want to hear. They're going out of
their way. They don't know what they want to hear.
That.
They just don't like Trump. They're settling for the other side. That's not that they want to hear anything. They just want to change.
I'm trying to just understand, though, like when I hear that Biden wants to basically, not just Biden, but that whole party wants to spend so much more on infrastructure, on stimulus than Trump. How is that bad for the markets?
Taxes?
Well, it's bad in the long run because who's paying for it? They have to raise taxes eventually to pay for all these stimuluses. And, a lot of people would argue it's very negative for the market over the long term. But you're right. It's good for individual industries. Obviously, the green stocks are benefiting big from a Biden win. And there are definitely companies that are going to do better under that administration.
Speaking of green stocks, Bob, that plug short at 19 would have been golden yesterday. I didn't do it.
I'm sorry I sold you off that. It looked like it was going right to 20. It got pretty close, right?
I didn't watch it. Once you kind of talked me off that train, I just stopped paying attention. But when I looked back later, I saw that it did break down a little. But no, I saw it was interesting because I saw somebody tweeted yesterday image of a Trump tweet from 2013, basically saying, and this was before he was running for president. He was like, all this stimulus is maybe great in the short term, but be careful if you own stocks long. Like he had some comment basically saying like, have a close eye on your investments because when they're printing money long term, this isn't going to end well. He tweeted that in 2013.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been talking about that for a long, long time. This will not end well, whether it's, Michael's prediction that Bitcoin is ruling or it just a lot of inflation down the road. Something will give in the world because you can't continue at this pace of spending and not collecting. It just can't.
Speaking of Bitcoin, I don't think we brought this up on our show yesterday, but Square invested $50 million in Bitcoin, and they're going to be accepting Bitcoin on the Square platform. Mike, I know you're huge on Jack Dorsey, who's the CEO of Twitter and Square, and on Bitcoin. We both own Bitcoin. Even Jeff owns some Bitcoin now, who's our younger brother. And Bitcoin got a little bit of pump on that. It was nothing crazy. I think the bigger thing to look at here, at least the way I've been viewing Bitcoin, is it's way more stable than it once was. Like this stock doesn't have these huge, crazy swings. I don't know if it's just fewer and far in between when those swings do happen, but every time I look at Bitcoin, it's in like the mid 10,000 range, which makes me feel better than a few years ago when that thing would move 1,600 points in an hour sometimes. So, I mean, what do you think that Square news is going to change people's outlook on Bitcoin at all?
I still don't think a lot of people understand what cryptocurrency is and what it's going to do for the world. So until everyone starts wisening up and doing some homework and reading on what's going on, then they'll start seeing how valuable Bitcoin is. And, you guys know I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face. This is the future. Just like some of these other stocks that we've brought up, it's good to get ahead of narratives and peer-to-peer networking, smart contracts, being able to work with anybody and invest in anybody seamlessly without a lawyer in the world is very, very fascinating. And that's where we're heading. So throw that in the Beyond Meat camp and the psychedelic stock camp if you want to get paid.
Yeah, Beyond Meat, I've been watching daily to see if I could somehow try and catch the stock on a reversal. Maybe it'll hit 200 and that'll be that for a while. But it's been a great stock. There's no doubt about it.
That'll be that for a while. Until it's at 300.
It's been
and 400. Dan, that stock is going, I told you, it's like the early innings of Tesla. Same exact situation.
Well, it's far from the early innings. I mean, where is it trading? What
part? It's trading
almost $200. What do you mean?
It feels a lot different than Tesla because
it's not.
Well, to me, the biggest difference is I think it's very tough to compete with Tesla. I don't think it's as tough to come out with competition.
I don't know about that. I think you're starting to see Beyond Meat as like a McDonald's force that they're building right now with that brand, and they're the market leader. They're very tough to compete with. They also have the best ingredients, the best supply demand chains, so the best supply chains, in the world, and the best partnerships. I don't see how
maybe Beyond Meat is going to start opening up restaurants.
They might. I will say they're great at releasing headlines right as the market opens every single day. Yesterday, they released that they come out with Beyond Meat sausage patties, and somehow they figure out ways to re-announce the same headlines every couple months. And
that's usually
we haven't heard the big ones yet about KFC, Beyond Chicken, when they headline.
Yeah, we have. I heard about
that thing is going to really pop.
Well, I heard about
but the expansion of it hasn't really come out.
Gotcha. See, that's kind of what I'm talking about. This is not the first time I've heard about the Beyond Meat KFC partnership, and I feel like that'll get announced in a week, and then all of a sudden you'll see a huge volume spike. When in reality,
the amount of people I know that eat Beyond Meat now regularly, this thing is just, unless out of the blue someone comes out and is like, "Oh no, this causes cancer tomorrow," this thing is not going to stop.
That would probably.
I've talked to way too many former huge meat eaters that have converted to this, where I'm very bullish.
Do they have steak?
Not yet, but why would they have steak? That's the toughest thing to replicate. Steak, that's one thing, and I don't even like steak, and I still would eat a steak over a Beyond Steak. It's just the texture. I'm a big texture guy, Dad, with food.
Yeah. It's hard to beat a good filet.
Yeah, exactly. But they're not asking someone to beat a filet. They're not even trying to right now. They're beating burgers. Well, and those Beyond sausages, I don't know if anyone's been to Dunkin' Donuts yet. Phenomenal breakfast sandwich.
Do you work for Dunkin' Donuts, Mike?
No, I own the stock.
I don't know. I feel like you just came from a Dunkin' Donuts when you.
Yeah, Dad, I was on there at 3 a.m. till the sunrise shift.
Maybe I can finally get into Mr. Wonderful's MNEDF this morning. It's down 12%.
There you go. Get in on that, Dan.
Yeah, I don't know why those stocks got hit yesterday.
Because they have to get hit at some point. They can't go up every day, even though they should.
As they should.
You guys got any final stock picks of the day before we end the show?
I look at what I've been doing pre-market, and everything is on the sell side. I just am putting out stocks at higher levels than they're at, just hoping to catch an upswing in the market. And I have no buy orders down there.
Bobby buying. Not today.
Not buying.
So you're basically, just to be clear, you're putting sell orders higher than where the stocks are trading right now. Hoping that
I've got 10 orders out there right now.
Yeah, I actually have a similar thing going on where they'll just automatically trigger.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they take these things to levels sometimes that are stupid, and an intraday situation. So you got to take advantage of that when you can. And I'm just too nervous about the next couple of months to start any real positions at this
So are
point.
you a seller in a stock like Microsoft if it gets to like 220?
Yeah, I'd probably sell a little bit, not a lot, but I have options out there that I've already done in Microsoft and Apple.
Yeah, where's young man Ben?
He's sleeping.
Of course he's sleeping.
Pull him up.
Get a man on here before the weekend.
Maybe we could get
There he is. What's up,
Hey.
Al?
everybody.
Mr. Charleston.
Miles, right here.
How's it
Hi,
going?
Miles.
Who's he looking
The other
at?
dog just walked in, and Miles is a little distracted.
Ah, there's the yawn. What's up, pal? Miles is known to sleep till like noon these days.
Miles is my little thing, but he looks at charts and
He looks like he's really looking, too.
there's a
All
setup. All right.
Let's
Talk
make
to you
some
later.
money.